All right, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott, formerly of Rankin Technical College, and is part of my YouTube channel, which is either right here, as you can see, or if you want to go out to YouTube and search here for JPS-Jeff Teaches Programming, you'll find my one YouTube playlist that right now has 46 videos. This is the 47th, Jeff Teaches Programming-Python. And I've gone and done, not the whole gamut, but I've done a lot of work on Python, learning it myself and hoping to teach it to other people. And I've gone through all sorts of stuff like writing simple Python programs, going over the keywords, going over the data structures in Python that are used most often, going over procedural programming, going over object-oriented programming and file handling as well, and now we're up to databases. Previously, I did one lecture on this, Understanding Databases, a Beginner's Guide. And then I did a second lecture on what is an RDBMS, and I combined that with a beginning look at the SQL tutorial. So I'm going to go out to here now, this SQLite tutorial, and we're going to talk about SQLite in particular. So we're right here. Again, this is a terrific resource right here to go out to javatpoint.com, and I'm right here, and I'm going to go over most of the things that are in here. All right. Now, they talk about the fact that SQLite is an embedded relational database management system. It's self-contained, meaning you don't need a server to work with it as you do in most other relational database management systems. As it says here, it does not have a separate server process. It reads and writes directly to ordinary disk files. Now, if you go through this whole thing, and of course I'm not, it would just take too much time. There's clauses in here and conditions, aggregate functions, triggers, keys, etc. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here. I'm going to concentrate for now on just the stuff that's in here. Plus, we'll look at attaching to a database. All right, so we're in the tutorial right now. And the next thing is SQL versus SQLite. And I don't want to read to you. The biggest difference is what we've already talked about, and that is the fact that SQLite is an embeddable relational management system. Okay? Notice it supports many features of SQL, has high performance, does not support stored procedures. All right? It's very portable. You can use it with virtually any operating system. Finally, as it says here, SQL is a query language. Basically, it's the query language that's used by virtually every relational database management system, including SQLite. But SQLite is a DBMS itself. Now, I'm not going to go over a lick on the history, other than to mention, you can see it's been around for about almost 25 years. Some of the features that are in here, some of this is redundant from what I said earlier. Again, it's free, it's serverless, it's flexible. There's no configuration you basically have to do other than downloading some files. It's cross-platform. Storing data, as it says, is easy. Variable length columns. It provides a large number of APIs. We'll get into APIs at a later time. An API is an application program interface. I always liken it to a contract between you and software, where it says that you can use whatever the software is if you agree to use it in the right way or in the way you're supposed to. SQLite is written in ANSI C, and it's available again for virtually any platform. As far as advantages and disadvantages here, again, many of these we've already been talking about. Lightweight. because, again, it's serverless. So you can use it on all sorts of devices, as they mention here, like TVs, phones, cameras, etc. Better performance, it's faster. Notice it only loads the data which is needed rather than loading an entire file. And if you edit, it only overwrites the part of the file that were changed as opposed to totally overwriting the whole file. Again, no installation needed. As it says, just download SQLite libraries in your computer and it's ready to start creating the database for you. It's reliable. It's been around, like I said, for almost 25 years. It's portable. Again, you can use it with virtually any operating system. It's accessible, so there's a wide variety of third-party tools that can be used to work with it. It can reduce costs. It can reduce complexity. Disadvantages? All right, it says it's used to handle low to medium traffic HTTP requests. Now, I'm going to give you a very quick little analogy, and believe it or not, it's not a good one, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. And what do I mean by that? All right, if you went out and you purchased Microsoft Office, which I used to have on here, but since I have retired, I don't think it's really much on here anymore. But if you purchase Microsoft Office, what you'd find, and again, like I said, I don't see it here even anymore, but what you'd find is one of the things that's on there is a database package that's called Microsoft Access. And Access, I've used it, I've even taught it many years ago. It works fine if you've got a very small installation with very few people using your database, but it's not meant for large installations. If you're going to do that, you should upgrade from, for example, from Access to another Microsoft product like SQL Server. Now, why am I saying that? Because SQLite is kind of like Access in that way, in that it's not the most powerful. That said, it's plenty powerful for what we're going to do. Notice the size is restricted to 2 gigabytes. Not a big thing for us. Installation. It says SQLite is known for its zero configuration, meaning there's no complex setup or administration. So let's see how to install SQLite for your system. It says follow the steps given below. I have not done this yet, so I'm going to do it right now. It says go to SQLite's official download page. Watch me do it as I'm doing it. So there it is. Okay. Again, not pretty, highly functional. It says download the precompiled binaries from the Windows section. Precompiled binaries for Android, for Linux, for Mac, for Windows. And I've got a 64-bit, so I'm going to click on this, and, well, let's just click on it. And that's going to download it, so there that is. Now, the other thing that says here is tools for 64-bit. Let's do that as well. So we now have all of that in our downloads right here. Now, it's still in a zip file. I haven't done anything with it yet, but you can see that was relatively simple. All right, it says download the SQLite DLL and SQLite zip files, or the tool zip files. Create a folder named SQLite in the C directory and expand these files. All right, so let's do this. Try to keep this. So I'm going to create a folder here called SQLite. There it is, right here. And it says expand these files. So I'm going to try to grab these files. Again, these files are in move that out of the way. Let's see if I can do all this. Let's move this up here. We'll move this up here. And let's go to the File Explorer here. And I will go to my downloads. All right. Now let's look in here. Well, let's unzip this. How's that? We'll unzip that in here. So extract. Let's see what it looks like. Sure didn't take long. That looks like it's the tools. And let's do the other one as well. All right, so I've got both these in there now. Well, I'm going to try doing it like this. Hopefully I'm doing it right. Cut this and paste. Cut that and paste. All right, so we've got all that. That should now be empty. That should now be empty. So we should be able to remove both these. All right, SQLite 3 def, SQLite 3 DLL, SQLite 3. I don't have a test in there, but I've got everything else. All right, open the command prompt to set the path. It'll look like this. All right, so let's open up a command prompt with CMD. There it is. I'm going to do a CD to SQLite. Oops, I got to do it to desktop. CD to desktop. Now a CD to SQLite. Okay, that's there. And it says the above method facilitates a permanent way to create a database. There is another way. Just download the binary zip file. Expand it so you see a page like this. Run the SQLite 3 application. Well, I did have that. There's SQLite 3 right there. Let's run that and see what happens. All right. Not what it's showing there, but let's see. Well, these are all executable files. It says you can execute an SQL query here, but here the data is temporary. Once you shut down the computer, you'll lose it. All right, so let's look at the commands. Now, look familiar? We've already talked about data definition language, and I mentioned there's basically 3 commands with DDL. I always look at it as being CAD, C-A-D, create, alter, and drop. Create to make something new. Alter to modify something that exists. And drop to get rid of something that exists. Then there's DML. And again, we've talked about these. Now, again, I remember stuff in weird ways, as I already mentioned here. Let's not grab that one. But as an example, I said for your DDL, it's create, alter, and drop. If you take the first 3 letters from each one of those, you get CAD. Not like that's a big thing, but DML, I like to use this. Select, let's move these out. Oh, we'll do it like that, that's fine. Select, update, insert, and delete. And if I play a little game here, and you take every one of the highlighted letters and uppercase letters, you get STUPID. So stupid. All right, again, kind of a dumb way to remember it, but it's always worked for me in the past. Now, they also mentioned data query language. All right, and they mentioned select. Well, yeah, we already know what select is, and we're going to keep looking at it. The dot command. It says following is a listing of the dot commands. These commands are not terminated by a semicolon. So if you type in dot help right there from an SQLite folder, you're going to get this, which is a list of the various commands you can use while you're in SQLite. All right, they're described here. I'm not going to go over any of them right now. There's a show command. All right, it says that you can see the default setting from your prompt. There's other dot commands that, again, we're not going to run through right now. All right, the syntax. So if you look here, as I mentioned, we've done the tutorial, quickly looked at SQLite, quickly looked at the history, the features, the advantages, the installation of the commands. We're up to syntax. All right, what we'll do next is we'll do the syntax, then the data types, the operators, and expressions. We'll talk about this stuff here. We'll talk about this stuff here, and we'll talk about CRUD. All right, there's not enough time right now to go through everything else that's in here. All right, SQLite, like virtually all relational database management systems, is case insensitive. All right, it says there are some commands which are case sensitive. I don't think we'll touch on any of those. Comments begin with 2 dashes. So 2 dashes means that everything to the right of that line are comments. And I believe in SQLite, at least, you can use the /* and with a / for multi-line comments. All right, we're not going to go over any of this stuff right now. These are some of the commands. So again, if you wanted to look at those and start to learn this stuff, you'd be able to. I believe in teaching you this stuff by showing it to you. So we're going to go through an actual example very shortly. The data types that are in here. All right, you'll notice not a whole heck of a lot. Null, for a null value. Remember, null means unknown. Integer, for a whole number. Real, which is a floating point number, which is a number that which typically at least would have a decimal place. Text. All right, for a string, it's kind of like with char and varchar. And blob, that actually means something. That's binary large object. And that usually is for things that you want to share that are really big. All right. So it says the value stored in an SQLite database can have one of these storage classes. Then it says you can use type affinities also in here. So int, integer, char, varchar, etc., text, blob, none, real, and number. You're going to see all these as we go on. Notice, a little different from, for example, using a language like an RDBMS like MySQL. In SQLite, there are no separate classes for dates and times, but as it says, you can store them as text, real, or integer values. There's also not a separate Boolean. Boolean, as it says, as opposed to that, are going to be stored as integers. 0 means false, 1 means true. As far as the operators go, it says there's 4 basic types of operators in SQLite. Arithmetic operators, which are your plus, minus, multiply, divide, and modulo, which is the remainder operator. Comparison operators, which are double equals if you're checking for equality, single equals, all right, to see if the values are equal or not. 2 ways of doing not equal, either an exclamation point followed by an equal sign or a less than sign followed by a greater sign. Then there's greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. Now, one thing that's a little different again in this language here, notice there's exclamation point less than and exclamation point greater than. All right, not going to run through those right now. The logical operators, let's see, there are several. And, between, exists, in, not in, like, glob, not, or, is null, is not. 2 pipe signs, and unique. Bitwise operators, basically what these are saying is if you've got 0 and 0, false and false give you false always. False and true, if you do an and, it's false, but false or true, 0 or 1 gives you true. 1 or 1, or 1 and 1 is always going to be true. And 1 and 0, you'll notice that number 2 here and number 4 here are identical as far as what they produce. All right. Then they have binary and binary or. We're going to get into all this stuff as we go on. Okay, like I said, it's not my intention here to go through the entire language with you right now. I just don't think that makes any sense. And I think you're going to get a lot more out of going through this with examples. So we're going to start almost remarkably slowly. All right, and we'll build on after that. Expressions, as it says, are combinations of values and functions. All right, we're going to look at something like this. There's Boolean, numeric, date expressions, etc. A lot of different stuff. All right, here is how you can create a database in SQLite. Now, this is doing it basically in here. What we're doing is we're doing this right from a command line. All right. It says the note here, the SQLite 3 command is used to create a database. But if the database does not exist, then the new database file with a given name will be created for you automatically. So they're running through some examples in here. I don't want to go through this because I think you might find it confusing. All right, but there's a lot of stuff in here, a lot of different commands in here. It says, assuming a condition where you have multiple databases available and you only want to use one at a time, you can use attach, which basically is going to take that one database and make it active, for lack of better words. Just like you can attach, you can also detach. All right. As far as creating a table, this should look pretty darn familiar to you because it's virtually what we did previously. Create table. None of these have to be capitalized. Nothing in here. Everything is capitalized in here. None of it has to be. Create table is DDL. It's a data definition language statement. All right, then the name of the table and then the fields. All right, and we're going to go through all this. And they create another one, etc. Just as you can create tables, you can remove them by dropping them. If you gave it a wrong name or you don't need it anymore, whatever. All right. Then next are the CRUD operations. All right. Right. Come on. There you are. Insert, select, update, and delete. This is where I want to stop it then. So here's an insert where you can insert a record into a table. All right. So what are we doing here? We're inserting multiple records into a table. Now, what I tried to do and what they show here are two different things. So what I tried to do may not work, but we'll find it out in just a bit. Select again. So insert is going to create something new. Select allows you to grab, or typically what's referred to as fetch, data from a table. Star means give me everything, and if you don't want everything, you just ask for what you need. Update changes something initially that's in a table. You can change one thing, you can change all things. Delete is what you think it would be. You can delete existing records from a table. All right. Now there's a whole bunch of stuff here. And so what we just did was we went through all of this, all of this, all of this, and all of this. And then there's a bunch of different clauses and conditions. Yes, we can go over all of them, but I don't really want to do that right now. All right. What I want to do right now is this. All right, no, not connect. But the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this particular, I'm going to attempt to take this Python SQLite tutorial, complete overview, creating a database table and running queries. I'm going to attempt to go through that with you. Now, it's a little old, 7 years old, and I'm about halfway through it right now. So I'm going to finish that and then go over everything that's in here, or at least attempt to. So what we're going to do is we're going to write basically a blank Python program, and we're going to import SQLite 3 into that and then do some of the stuff that's shown here. What I want to do is, like I said, I've given this example before, maybe not in this series of lectures, but in other ones. And that is, I'll always remember, I've got 3 daughters, and 2 of them are within about 9 or 10 months of each other. All right. And both of them, we signed up years ago. They're both in their 30s now. But years ago, we signed both of them up for swimming lessons at the same time. And one of them was a little timid around the water. The other one wanted to, when we got there the first day, jump off the diving board. But I remember the instructor saying, now, this is what we're going to do today. And she took them away from the pool, and she took them to this, basically, it was a kiddie pool, if you'd even call it that. And she just wanted them to put their feet in. And then basically they got themselves in, but it was only a few inches deep. All right. It was the crawl, walk, run mentality. She was showing them crawl, for lack of better words. And then she was going to show them how to walk. And that was the second or third week when they brought them into the regular pool, but into the shallow end. All right, then it was run. By the end of the class, they had them jumping off the diving board and onto the deep end, rather. And that's what I want to do here. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to rewatch this. Actually, watch all of it. Then I'm going to take a quick look at this. This is John Elder's. He had a course. And again, I've got all this stuff in those URLs that I gave you. Oops, not there. So we have now gone through this SQLite tutorial and this Connect SQLite with Python. All right. I'm going to go through those and we're going to go through an example, but I'd like to use these, not these two databases, but a database from here. What I did was I went out to Google, as we all do. All right. And what I asked for in there was some sample databases. And it came up with two, the Chinook database and Northwind. Northwind has been around forever, and everybody uses it for just about everything. The Chinook one is much newer. It says it was created as an alternative to Northwind. This is the one I'm going to use. All right, if we take a look at this, this is it. Now, that's kind of hard for most people to wrap their head around. So I found what I thought, well, somewhere in here. Thought I had a better picture of it. Maybe it is in here. Maybe not. All right, well, let's do it this way. I'm going to make it bigger. This is the Chinook database here. Now, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 tables in it. Sorry, that's too much to throw at people at one time. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab a subset of this. What I mean is we're going to use customers. We're going to use employees. We're going to use invoices. And we're going to use invoice items. For now, at least, and possibly for good, I'm not going to work with albums, artists, tracks, playlist track, playlist, media types, or genres. So we're, out of these 11 tables, again, we're going to grab the first 4 that are shown here. Employees. As it says, it stores employee data. Well, what's in here? Each employee has their own ID, last name, first name, title, reports to, birth date, hire date, and address. Customers have many of the same fields, but some that are different. A customer ID as opposed to an employee ID, a first name and a last name. The company that the customer works for or whatever owns, whatever it happens to be in that company's address, city, state, country, postal code, which is the equivalent of a zip, phone number, fax number, email, and this support rep ID. Then we have invoices. Each invoice has an ID. It has a customer ID, so we can link it back to this table. It has an invoice date. It has a billing address and a billing city. Notice it even says there's more columns here, just like there's more columns there. We'll look at all this in just a bit. Finally, we'll have this invoice items. So invoices are made up of invoice items. Now, if we go, and it looks like I've removed it accidentally, and that's okay. Let's see. They talk about this file here, and I've already saved it, so I'm going to make it available out there. It's called Chinook Site SQL. All right. Now, when you look at this, it may not look like a lot, but it's got all the data in here. Okay, so in other words, notice here, So here's the tables. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 tables. We're not going to worry about artist, but we'll create all of it. We're not going to worry about album, but we will worry about customer. We will worry about employee. We will worry about not genre, but we will worry about invoice and invoice line. We won't worry about media type, playlist, playlist track, or track. So here they have some indexes. We'll talk about those in a bit. Here is where they're inserting the data in. Okay, so we're going to look at this. What I'm going to attempt to do, again, is to go back over this right here and this, and between these two things, use those to, for lack of better words, start to go through and write our first Python program that uses SQLite. In the interim, and we'll also go over this in Introduction to SQLite with Python. All right, so we'll go over that as well. Okay, so hopefully that made at least some sense to you. I'll be back to continue on, all right, with this in just a few minutes. Thanks.